Hello and welcome to the Brave Marketing Podcast with your host, Swapna Thomas. This is the podcast for the renegades, the trailblazing leaders, and the change makers who don't just have a business, it's your calling. Those of you who want to make a difference and make money, but all on your own terms. I'm on a mission to show as many life coaches as possible how you can have more income, more impact, and infinitely more fun by being unapologetically and bravely you and breaking all the rules. I have created 5-figure months with no paid ads, a tiny list, and zero complicated sales funnels. Simplifying marketing and teaching you how to use it for good in the world is my zone of genius. With this podcast, I'm here to share weekly episodes on the soul and the strategy of marketing, mindset, money, and everything online business. Let's dive into today's episode. Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of the Brave Marketing Podcast. And today I have someone very, very special to me on the podcast as a guest. And I cannot wait to introduce all of you to her. But before that, I just want to repeat my disclaimer from last week because both of those episodes were recorded back to back. I still have a very bad throat. I still sound very nasally and croaky, or in my mind, it's husky and sultry. But we are going to keep going because this podcast is about being brave in your marketing. And one of the things that comes with being brave in your marketing is being imperfect and being a real human being. So that's what I'm going for here today. So please bear with my sound and my noise is what I wanted to say because it does seem like a bit of a noise at times. But you are not going to pay a lot of attention to my sound or my nasally voice right now because we have someone very, very special on the podcast. And I am so thrilled to introduce all of you to Lisa Jane. Hi, Lisa.
Hi, Swapna. Your voice sounds delightful. Thank you. And I feel very honored to be introduced as someone special to you.
Oh, absolutely. So for those of you who don't know about Lisa, I think everyone should know her, but she is a transformational copywriter and a soul-infused social media marketing strategist for coaches. That sounds delicious. That sounds like the best blend of coffee ever. But that's not all. I did a little bit of digging, and she has this whole diverse experience as an entrepreneur where she has been a facilitator of authentic dating and connection events. She's been a serial assistant and participant in transformational personal development spaces, event manager, publication of poetry, activist projects for human and child's rights, creative writing facilitator, and I'm sure there are a couple more things she's added since I last saw this. So welcome, Lisa. How do you do it all? That's my first question.
Oh my gosh. Swapna, what it's so lovely to have someone dig deeper into your background. Thank you. I feel very seen. How do I do it all? That is such an interesting question. Look, I've always been a very multi-passionate person. I've been one of those people my whole life who is planning out 3 possible realities. And, there was literally a time in my life where I was like, maybe I can study 3 degrees at once from 3 different universities, So I've always had that kind of multi-passionate nature. And I think personal development is really the reason I can do it all. I've over the past 5 years consciously put myself in training and personal development spaces that is constantly asking us as humans, like, what more can we do? How can we achieve our potential? How can we kind of rise above our human limitations and really excel and do the impossible? And I feel like, it's through these trainings and these personal development events that I have built this capacity to be able to do a lot of different things and kind of, set up a business that allows me to utilize these these different parts of my life and lots of different things that I've learned. So I have to give a lot of it to personal development work that I've done.
Yeah, I love that. And that is the beauty of doing this sometimes difficult work, right? Inner work is not always a cake in the it's not a cakewalk, it's not a walk in the park. It is messy. It is coming to terms with a lot of stuff that you've just never taken a look at, but it's so worth it because it allows you to really um, journey into all of your potential and all of your desires and truly become the human being that you have always wanted to be. So you're such an amazing example of that for anyone else who wants to expand their potential and who want to see what else is possible, what else is out there for us. So thank you for sharing a little bit of that. So Lisa, tell us a little bit about how you started your online business, because I know your journey and I know that you were into teaching before you started your online business, right? And you had a lot of experience teaching in universities on subjects like English, media, psychology, and research skills. So how did you first of all start your online business, and were you able to integrate, and I know you were able to integrate these skills, but how were you able to do that? Because I truly believe that everything fits with everything. Anything that you learn never goes waste. But how did you find, how easy was it to integrate these skills within your current business, and how did you go about it?
Oh, what a delicious question, Swapna. And I know you also have a lot of experience in integrating skills from a past career into entrepreneurship. So I love, that you're asking me to consciously think about this, because often we do things without even realizing that we're doing it. So yeah, it's really cool to have this opportunity to think about that. So yeah, in line with my multi-passionate nature, I've studied a couple of different things at uni. Like I've studied psychology and teaching and English literature and media, and more recently counseling. And I guess what this really, taught me in many ways is how to be good with people, how to feel confident facilitating a space, how to be confident working with people. And I guess my role as a teacher really helped me to learn how to present confidently when I'm speaking to a group, which wasn't the case when I started. I was so nervous when I first started my career as a teacher. I was 18 in front of my first class, in my prac, and I had to push through so many nerves, and I really had to develop those skills. And I always sensed that, because back then I feel like I always kind of chose teaching because I loved learning. And it became really the only clear path for someone who loved learning and loved people. So I thought, okay, I'll do that. And then eventually I thought, you know what, I'm going to just work a couple of days a week and study psychology. So then I did that. And that, I think, really helped me understand the depths of human psychology. And, if you were to ask me why I have an understanding of marketing, a lot of it goes back to psychology and, the things that I learn about what humans need and desire, because essentially marketing is about what humans need and desire, and how to position things in a way that they feel motivated. So psychology is very much linked to motivation and human motivation. So I think that my teaching is very much my public speaking skills, my ability to facilitate spaces confidently. The psychology aspect is more the understanding of humans and their psychology and their motivations, and the way that positioning things in a certain way will affect them, and all of that. And then obviously media, which was something I kind of just fell into because I was given the opportunity to teach it, and I thought, okay, well, I'm gonna also study it as well, like because I was really keen to do a good job of teaching it. So I kind of put myself on that path, and what I learned was not only that I had, probably because of psychology, a bit of a natural aptitude for media, creative entrepreneurship, social media. What I learned really was the branding aspect of things, what branding is, what the power of it is, what entrepreneurship is. I think it helped me build the theory, understanding of the entrepreneurial mindset that, gives me so much confidence when I'm making decisions in my business. And I think also supports me to kind of cultivate that entrepreneurial mindset in my clients as well. So yeah, that's, I guess, in a way, that's why I think I've kind of titled myself more as a transformational copywriter, because I notice that it's not just copywriting that I'm doing. There's mindset stuff happening as well. So all of that kind of goes in, and then I will get to how I started my business, but I do feel like this is an important preamble. And then the counseling aspect, I started a master's of counseling the year before I started my business. And I think that actually really gave me the skills to sit one-to-one with people and encourage a space of vulnerability and openness and connection and rapport, which is essential, I think, for, long-term client retention, to be able to connect with anyone at any time, and just to feel comfortable in my own compass as well. It was a really great course that helped me do that. So I feel that these are the things that led me to, they led me to, I guess, especially my academic skills led me to being recognized as a writer amongst my peers. And, my entrepreneurial side, which was exercised through the speed dating events that I'd run, because I love, people connecting and things like that. People started approaching me and saying, Lisa, can you help me with this event description? Or Lisa, can you help me with this bio or this website copy? And, I used to kind of do it as a favor for people, or, sometimes I would just do it as a quick thing, I didn't see it as a career path at all. But it was kind of over the years of people constantly kind of referring to me as a writer and asking for my support, saying that they were willing to pay me to support them to set up social media accounts. I thought to myself, okay, this is interesting that people keep coming to me for this, And then it kind of became this thing. And this is why I'm such an advocate for celebrating the small wins, because a couple of times I posted, I've got 2 clients, I've got 3 clients. And all of a sudden, within a few weeks, I had more and more people reaching out to me. I'd decided to go all in, set up my website, launched it officially, did a bit of research of what the market prices were. And, within a couple of months, I was booked out because, it was just working and people seemed to be sitting there waiting for it, So it was a very organic kind of experience that was quite amazing, really, when I think about it.
And there's so much to unpack here. First of all, I think like you and I have such similar journey in terms of, I also had these clues along my journey. Like I loved writing. When I did my MBA, the only subjects that I was interested in were all related to media. So advertising, psychology, like all of those things which were about human beings, that were the ones that interested me as well. But I still thought I'm an MBA. I'm going to be a corporate honcho, but that was not my path, obviously. And you have these clues along the way, but you never really pay attention to them until one day it just becomes like so obvious. But in my case, it was more of an accident because I started a mom blog when I was a stay-at-home mom. And again, just like you, when I started growing my blog, people would keep asking me, what are you doing? How are you doing this? How are you getting brand, collaborations when you don't have a very big audience? You don't have that many followers on social media, but I was getting the cream of brands approaching me. So I would teach them, this is because my positioning is very different. This is how I position myself. So I remember I put together a course for my fellow bloggers. And I think I charged around maybe $20 for that or something. But it was not about money at all. It was more about, oh my God, someone wants to learn this from me. I cannot, yeah, of course, like I would teach this, and it felt so easy and it felt so just my zone that I loved it. And that's when I got introduced to the coaching industry and it felt like I'm home. This is where I'm meant to be. And and I think sometimes as we go along our journey, we lose that naive sense of achievement that we get right from those early wins, like that first client, that first win, that first celebration. We forget that how amazing that was. It was never about the money, but it was about, wow, someone wants to pay me for this. I get to talk and get paid for that. I can't believe it. So I love that. And I also like one more thing that I want to highlight in your journey is that people overcomplicate getting clients so much. And I always tell people there are 5 to 10 clients in your network right now. I don't care what you do. I don't care what you're trying to sell, but there are always 5 to 10 people, especially if you're a coach or a service-based business. There are 5 to 10 people in your immediate network who will work with you, and you don't really have to set up a whole website or a social media page and all for that, but you just need to start talking about what you do, and you're such a beautiful example of that.
Oh, thank you so much. It's so funny. I also say, like, it only takes 10 people to have a fully booked out business, like sometimes I think, people get really worked up about, I have to have 1 million followers and I have to do this and I have to have this. And it's like, I mean, I'm sure there are lots of different factors. Like, yes, there is expertise. Yes, there is competency. Yes, there is, skill. And also there's some level of soul as well, like, in alignment with our purpose and what we're supposed to be doing. And the thing is, though, like you say, there are 5 to 10 people just, and the thing is that they're probably not the people we expect them to be. And this is where we have to let go a little bit. And that's why, it is important to show up and share on social media, because we can't always know who needs us. We can't always know who's ready for us. And that's actually not our job to. It's our job to share where we're at and what's true and what our skills are so people can select us. That's how I feel anyway.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And I think assuming anything about your clients is a very dangerous path. Assuming what they will pay for, and how much will they pay for it. Never make those assumptions about your audience. That's not in your control. You just stay true to your message and whatever you want to charge, right? But I love the fact that you also researched market prices and priced accordingly, which is a very smart move. And I think not everyone talks about it because it's more like charge what you're worth. But I think we are all priceless. Our worth cannot be measured in dollars anyway. So create a more, I feel like a more soul and strategy based approach. So it should be according to what the market rates are, but also then you bring in your desire. So how much do you want to charge? It might be more than the market price. It might be less than the market price sometimes, but create your own pricing formula rather than just looking at what everyone else is doing. So let's go back to what you really do, which is spiritual copywriting. And I don't know if a lot of people have heard of this term. So talk a little bit about what is spiritual copywriting, and then how is it different from the other styles of copywriting out there? And then what do you think is the evolution of copy in the next few years? Because I think copy has undergone a huge change in the last decade or so, from the time of those yellow highlighted pages. All of us remember those ugly sales pages with yellow highlights like, hurry, it's running out, 10 copies left of this digital ebook.
Yeah.
Which made no sense, right?
Yeah.
And from there, we have made a lot of changes in the copywriting industry. But I would love to know what's your take on what's next. But before that, yeah, definitely talk about what is spiritual copywriting.
I actually love the term spiritual copywriting, and I feel really excited to have it reflected back to me and to kind of own it and be like, yeah, that's what I do. I do spiritual copywriting because, you know, I've definitely owned the transformational aspect of it, but I haven't necessarily owned the spiritual, even though a lot of my message, you know, even my business name is Sacred Social Media, like obviously there's something spiritual happening there. But it's not the first thing I lead with necessarily. However, that's what it is. And it's not something that I learned anywhere. I didn't learn it in any course or any book. I didn't, you know, it's like I legitimately had no idea what copywriting was. I think it's more that I have learnt by being in transformational spaces, I have learnt the mindset of what it takes to enroll people in your vision and to paint possibility. And, you know, I guess my writing has just translated that. And why is it called spiritual copywriting? Well, because it's about translating your, I guess, your soul purpose, you know, to the world. Like it's not about just choosing a business and doing a business from a place of, you know, how can I make the most profit, or, you know, what does the market need, or what's this? It's like, it's actually taking a step back and going back to our spiritual purpose and saying, you know, if I, like, what's my legacy? Like, what do I want to bring more of to the world? How do I want to help heal the world? What do I want to contribute to the world? You know, from that kind of spiritual place. And, you know, I think the reason it's also spiritual is because I really believe in copywriting that is actually devoid or removed from ego, you know. So it's not actually just like, how can I make myself as important as possible? How can I, you know, manipulate people to think that I'm awesome and want to buy my things? How can I post in a way that I get validation for my personality, for my ego? It's actually more than that. You know, what I believe is, and this is quite spiritual, I guess. So, you know, some people it might sound like they've never heard anything like this before, but I do believe that, you know, I do believe in one consciousness. I do believe in the world being very deeply connected, and that we all have a shared consciousness, and that if we are able to, you know, move to enlightened states, you know, through meditation or through our practices, or, you know, whatever our practices are to get to that depth of understanding, you know, we can actually tap into not just our own intuition, but deep collective wisdom, you know. And I do believe that when you're operating from this place, it's not that you have to think like, what kind of copywriting should I do today? What kind of content should I write? It's like, if you can actually get all the noise out of the way, and you can dip into your purpose, you can dip into the stillness of yourself, then it will be revealed to you. You know, you will have a message, because it will, you know, it and this is, I guess, where the magic comes in, but it's like, we all have access to deeper wisdom from our higher self, you know, that part of us that is, you know, some people, I guess, call it God, some people call it the universe, some people call it consciousness, but it's that part of us that is divine and is yearning to bring good things to the world. And, you know, I guess I just have this belief that the world is conspiring to be whole and healed and complete. And if we just can get ourselves out of the way a little bit and our egos out of the way, then we can just follow those nudges and follow that intuition. And if we are, you know, able to write from that place into a clear intention, you know, it will be very powerful. And, you know, people will feel touched and moved and inspired, and they will feel, you know, they'll feel a pull to this vision that we're creating that isn't, it's like their soul knows something, like that it's going to get greater expansion, or it's going to be able to reach self-actualization by following a certain, you know, the path that we're laying out. If, you know, and it's maybe not for everybody, but for the right people at the right time, when they're ready for that next evolution, to become more of themselves, their authentic self, to live out more of their purpose, which is, yeah, very different to I guess, the old way of marketing or copywriting, which I guess is, how can we aggravate people's pain points? How can we sell them our vision of the world so that they feel they need things that they don't need? How can we encourage the consumer mindset? These things that I feel aren't necessarily always ethical or caring about the human on the other side. Whereas I feel spiritual copywriting is actually calling people into something that is good for them, and it's encouraging them to be empowered and to make a choice from an empowered place of being informed, of having complete agency and autonomy and confidence, and it's an empowered process. They're choosing from a place of feeling empowered rather than I'm incomplete and I need this thing to solve me or fix me, So yeah, I guess that's why I see it as spiritual copywriting. And to answer your question of, where do I think copy is going? I do think that more and more people are getting clued on to the fact that marketing can feel quite manipulative, and, people's nervous systems are getting more attuned to shutting down to things that feel like manipulation. And so businesses will need to adapt, and they will need to adopt this more empowered way of copywriting and marketing that is bringing people into a vision that is inspiring, and not just making people feel like they're not good enough and that they need a product to fix them. And, I think if you look at even just mainstream marketing through visuals, like with Apple, their products and their images are very much about how the technology and how the products can bring people together, can facilitate connection, can give people what they actually want, as opposed to trying to feed them a vision of something they don't want. I think it's very different when you're okay, what do humans really want, and how can I really help them meet that need in a genuine way, as opposed to my own needs and my own vision and forcing it onto people and telling them that they should need this thing.
I absolutely am. I'm on board 100% with you, with everything that you just said. And when it comes to what I do, and my take on marketing is that you got to use marketing for good. It's just another tool, right? You can, like money, you can use it for greed and all the selfish reasons, but you can also use it for so much good in the world. And I feel the same way about marketing, that it can do so much good in the world when used the right way. And I feel spiritual copywriting is a part of how you use that for good. And I always tell my clients that step into your higher self and speak to the higher self of your clients, because there is no ego there. There is no fake sense of urgency there. There is no reason to poke into their pains, because they want it. They are craving for exactly what you're selling. So when you're speaking to that part of them, you don't need to do all of these bells and whistles that the marketing industry teaches you that you need, right? Like poking into their pains or aggravating their pains. And I heard someone saying twisting the knife so that they really feel that pain. You don't need to do any of that stuff, because your clients already want that transformation. They are actively looking to change. So speak to that part of them. Speak to that part of them, which is a little bit scared maybe, but it still desires this change. It knows that this is where I'm going. And I think that spiritual copywriting, when it comes from that space of no ego and stepping into your higher self, where you don't need to prove anything to anyone, you don't need to validate anything to anyone, you're speaking literally your heart out, it just connects with people. And it might not, always follow all the copywriting rules per se. It might not always follow that structure that copywriters talk about or hitting all the points. But I think it just speaks to the soul, because it's coming from the soul, right? So even though it might not be perfect in the copywriting lingo, or the format that we are told that this is how you should write copy, but it still converts because it's speaking to that part of people, which is who are taking decisions from a space of, not a space of lack, but rather a space of desire, which I think is what we all want, right? At the end of the day, I don't want to work with people who are coming to work with me because they are in a space of lack, or they are triggered, or they are worried about their next, client, or, well, how am I going to do this? I want to work with people who are excited, who are thinking, how can I do this? Like, I'm so excited to do this. Just teach me, what can I do? So that energy is completely different. And I think more and more people post pandemic are tuned into that energy. They're craving that energy more than just like getting dollars somehow in your pocket. They want to actually experience real transformation in people. And also, you mentioned about the nervous system. I think many of us are becoming more and more aware of our nervous system. Not a lot of people used to talk about what copy does to your nervous system, right? It can easily put it into flight fight mode when used effectively. Yeah, traumatizing people, literally. And so much of copy has been micro traumatizing people for a very long time. So I think that I don't think people want any part of that anymore. And more and more people are consciously choosing to walk away from that and just talking to people like a normal human being would, right? Why not do that? Let's make things simple. And I think that's what spiritual copywriting represents to me. It's so much more simpler. Like, yes, it might be layered and nuanced and complex in some ways, but at the heart of it, it is simple because you're speaking from your soul.
Yes, Swapna. And this is what just lights me up about speaking with you, because it is so lovely to speak to someone else who gets it. And I'm sure that you probably relate to this, the pain that can happen when you're working with a client who doesn't get it. It can be very, very jarring because, and, it's about bringing compassion to the parts of them that don't know and don't trust yet. But it's like, there's obviously been a whole generation and more of marketing from this, problem, agitation, solution. And I find it really disheartening, when a client or a potential client comes to me and they're like, oh, yeah, okay, so, problem, agitation, solution, yep, that's the structure that we follow or that I follow. And, see this person's landing page, I want it to look like theirs. And, if I see those signs early on, I choose not to work with those people anymore, because for me, it's like exactly what you've just said. When you are speaking to someone's higher self, when you are actually in the being, like your being is in your higher self. Yes, it may be that you don't follow all the tick box rules of the copywriting industry. What I have learned from philosophy and psychology again and again, and actually mainly philosophy, is that beauty and truth are two of the highest human ideals, and we don't need to be convinced to value them. We don't need to be manipulated to value them. They are intrinsically valuable to humans as part of our very nature. And so I think what people may not realize, and this is why, soul and strategy are both important, but when you are speaking from soul, strategy is limited, but soul is limitless. And strategy can get you so far. But if you have soul, like, it bypasses the strategy, because people can feel the truth and the beauty of what's happening. So it doesn't matter if your sentence or your post doesn't tick all the boxes and it doesn't have the little structure and the little headline that we all think we need, because humans are inevitably and they can't help it. They are drawn to truth and beauty. And, there's nothing we can say or do that will kind of stop them from wanting that and being inspired by that. So it's like, yes, you can learn all the tricks to try and mimic something that's valuable to people, or you can actually be it. And, it's courageous. And that's why obviously Brave Marketing is the name of your podcast. It's bloody brave to show up and represent truth and share your truth.
I think so. I think my only metric when I'm writing content or copy is, am I speaking the truth as I know it in this moment? And if it is yes, then I just go ahead and do it. I don't have to second guess it. I don't have to edit it a lot, because that's my number one metric, is to see if I'm speaking the truth to my clients. You you beautifully mentioned that it is brave to lead from that space of soul. And I ask all my guests, what's the bravest thing that you have done? And it doesn't need to be brave in the traditional sense, but it needs to feel brave to you. And you shared that sharing a childhood truth with your family was the bravest thing that you have done recently. And the expressing the truth of your story was scary, but also necessary, I guess, for you at that time. And I feel recently I've also started saying that you have become, I don't want to say more vulnerable, but I think you've just started expressing your truth a whole lot more confidently, which is also something that you do for your clients when you're writing empowered copy for them. Um, how do you look at vulnerability when it comes to copy, but also when it comes to just being online? And because we know it's a thin line, right, between being vulnerable and between being an oversharer. And also, there is something called vulnerability hangover. Like, we've all experienced it when you really put yourself out there and it just sort of triggers something in you. And it can go in a lot of different ways. Some people completely get paralyzed after sharing a huge truth. And for some people, it just brings up a lot of anxiety or this flight energy where they just want to pick up fights with anyone who doesn't agree with them or something like that. So how do you look at it, all of this? And what's your personal take on vulnerability in copy and being vulnerable online?
You're right, because it is a thin line, and the strategy isn't just just overshare every detail of your life, because that's not necessarily true either. And this is where it comes to the empowerment piece. Vulnerability is, I think, inherently beautiful and inherently creates connection between humans. I think there is a difference between just saying words and actually genuinely being vulnerable. Now, vulnerable is a funny word because, we have actually two different ways of being vulnerable. So one of them is genuinely being vulnerable, and that's somebody, who, example, doesn't have a support system, is genuinely dependent. So, for example, someone who is homeless, someone who is a child, someone who is in an abusive situation, somebody who is broke and doesn't have any money, and like there are genuine, in a war-torn country, there are genuine factors that contribute to vulnerability that are situational. And I think people get confused between that type of vulnerability and the vulnerability that comes from sharing from a place of self-love, sharing from a place of, this is a part of myself that I am not going to hide because I think it won't be accepted. I'm sharing from a place of loving myself and honoring myself. I'm not trying to get anything. I'm not trying to get approval or validation or support even. This is, sharing vulnerably is about speaking truth for truth's sake. And it's brave because it means that you are willing to hold yourself no matter what happens.
Yeah. And I just maybe want to add a little bit to this conversation here, because I think it's so important to talk about this. As creators and as coaches, we are putting so much of ourselves out there. So sometimes it can be hard to really understand how much to put out there. What can I put out there? So the two things I tell my clients are share your scars, not your wounds. So anything that's fresh, that is still sort of, it's going to hurt if somebody pokes into it. Don't share that, because you can get yourself triggered again. You can trigger other people as well by sharing things that you haven't actually completely resolved. So don't share those things. And the other thing I actually saw this online somewhere, and I think I'm just co-opting that right now, is you don't have to shred your soul every single time you go online. And they can feel a pressure, because people have started using vulnerability as a strategy as well. So you can feel that pressure of one upping people, and let me also share this truth about my life. But I think you don't need to do that, because every single time you speak your truth, especially vulnerable truths, you do share part of your soul with your audience. And like you said, not everyone deserves to hear this. So be mindful, and curate the spaces where you're sharing it, and also control what you want to share. Right? It's all in your control. You can choose which parts to share, which parts to keep to yourself right now. Maybe you might be ready for it at a later stage. You don't owe the internet your pain. So you don't have to dish it out to everyone that, yeah, I'm being vulnerable, so here is all of it. You can choose what to share at a given point of time. So I absolutely love your approach on this. And I love the empowerment piece of it as well, because if it's coming from a space of needing validation or needing approval from others, or fulfilling something that you feel like you did not get, whether it's a childhood wound, and you feel like the adults in your life did not recognize it. So now let me share it out to the whole world, and maybe I will get that recognition now. I think you're in for a lot more emotional pain and re traumatizing yourself. So I absolutely, completely agree with every single thing that you have said here. Lisa, one of the things I really admire about you, and I think I love observing as well, is how you have scaled your business to 5-figure months without any big launches. And it also feels like you're moving to your own rhythm, and you're moving to your own desires, is how I look at it from the outside. So can you give us a little bit of a peek into your thought process when it comes to your business model? Because one of the things I tell my clients is, there is, anything that you want to do the way you want to do it, it will work. So there are millions of people running their businesses, and there are millions of business models. You don't have to copy anyone else's. So I love giving them examples of people who are doing it their own way, and maybe they figured it out by accident, or maybe it's by design. But either way, you're running your business in a very different way from a lot of other people, especially copywriters. So walk us through a little bit of that.
I love this question, and I feel so seen once again, because I don't even think about it like that, but I love that you have reflected back to me that I seem to be walking to my own rhythm and doing things differently. I love that. Thank you so much. I really believe in what you've said as well, that what the word, it's like that quote, the world needs a lot more alive people. So work out what makes you come alive, because that's what the world needs. Don't try to work out what the world needs. Just work out what makes you come alive. I do believe that. And I do believe that when we are happy and loving what we do, our life force energy is so much more magnetic. And again, we're showing people what's possible through our example. It's a bit of a revolution. We're redefining the way that we work. We're not just working from a place of hardship and struggle, but we're working from a place of joy, which is, really is inspiring. So I love hearing my 5-figure months. It's so cute. I think it's important to mention that, not every month is a 5-figure month. That can feed into unrealistic expectations for entrepreneurs. Sometimes it's it all averages out. That's how I see it. And this is why I focus on the long game. I focus on kind of, do I have enough to live and do what I want? That's my only metric. That's all I care about. And it's just, but it's really cool that, just even going back to the beginning of our talk, when I worked out how I was going to structure my business model, I basically went, okay, I want to replace my teaching income. What do I need to charge? How many spots do I need to sell to replace my teaching income? That's it. And that's how I just made the decision I was going to replace my teaching income. And then now it's gotten to a place where I'm making more than I ever did as a teacher, even in universities. So, I feel so at ease and joyful because, I'm already always feeling in surplus, just because of the potential of what I can make and what I make. So I'm also, very lucky I didn't think about it like this, but I don't necessarily have huge launches, and I don't, it's almost like this tap that I feel like I can just turn on when I need it, and that's what I really think, good marketing makes possible. Like you just get that sense of like, wow, I could just create wealth and abundance at any time. But I think, practically, I think what it looks like for me is that I've always had a wait list. And so I've always got people waiting on my list. And so it's almost like, when I have space to work with a new person, all I have to do is reach out to someone on my wait list. So it really opens up that space for organic content. I can just keep sharing what's true. I trust that people will find and work out what I do. A lot of people respond to the call or respond to, their soul nudges. A lot of people are like, I don't even know. I'm just reaching out because I feel the nudge. And, then they join the wait list, and it might be 6 months or a year and a half later, and I go, hey, I've got a spot open. So that's one thing. Another one is client retention. I've had almost the same 9 clients for a year now. Some of them I've had for 2 years since I started my business. So, I've got essentially a foundation of clients that have continued with me. And, depending on what's going on in my life, I'll open up more slots. And it's only kind of recently now that I'm moving to my group membership, the Content Cauldron, and I'm starting to think about courses that I want to run, that I'm actually thinking about more, expanding beyond the wait list, and maybe even thinking about launches and things like that. But even so, I just don't even think about it, because I just think, why should I force everyone to be ready for me now? Like, I can just keep doing my thing, and then when they're ready, they'll just come, and I'll just keep working. Like, it's fine, I don't have this sense of urgency of like, oh my God, I have to fill all of my courses and all of my programs right now, because I'm also aware that people have their own journey and they're going through their own transformation, and they may not be ready yet.
2 things jump out to me from what you've just shared. One is the power of constraint. So basically not creating a million offers and focusing on mastering one offer and doing it really well, right? And the fact that you have a wait list of people that you can literally open up a spot and it will get snapped up like that. I think that just shows how incredible it is to be able to master delivering one kind of offer and not. And I know there are, again, every business can have its own business model. So there are people who do really well with lots of low cost offers or lots of offers going at the same time. But if that's not for you, there is also this way where you can just focus on delivering one thing and getting really, really good at that before you can, decide to add another income stream or a course or anything like that. And the second thing is that the thing that I said, like, you move on your own rhythm. You're not falling prey to sometimes the really loud noises in this industry, which is like charge your worth, or, you have to, like, once you're booked out, you have to start a group program, or you have to do this, like you have to start bottling your knowledge into a course. And I know those things are coming for you, but you've taken your own time. Like, you've not fallen into any pressure doing those things. And you've just kept doing what energizes you. And even the fact that, you're working with the same 9 clients says a lot about this missing piece that a lot of people are not really taking a look at, which is delivering services to your clients and creating a beautiful experience for them so that they keep coming back. And one of the things I'm noticing in this industry is that people are spending a whole lot more time on marketing than on actually coaching or working with their clients, which I don't think is a great trend. And, if it just means that people are getting better and better at marketing their services than becoming a better service provider or better coach, which I don't think is going to serve this industry in the long run. So I really love your approach where you're focusing on actually being there for your clients and really showing up for them and the work that they are doing and becoming a conduit of that for them. And meanwhile, also creating this really beautiful income for yourself and not falling prey to you have to get to 6-figure months. And, I think that will happen organically for you. I really see that for you. But I love that you're not really running that race. So all of this is, I think, so much to take away from this for anyone who wants to create a business that feels nourishing to their soul, but also nourishes their bank account at the same time. So Lisa, what's next for you? You mentioned the membership, and I know that there is a spiritual copywriting course that you're creating for copywriters. Are those the two things that you're focusing on for now, or is there something else that's coming up?
Look, they are the main things. I'm very excited about them. They feel very easy and natural. I'm getting, more and more excited about, sharing different aspects of myself. Like you said, the teacher, the different parts of me, the coach. I thought, people used to say that to me. Why don't you just coach everyone? Why don't you do that? I was like, no, I just want to write. I can see the joy that it brings me to teach this stuff now that I feel quite confident in it. And I've had a few iterations over a couple of years. So I think it's these things. It feels like the natural next step to help not just copywriters, but people who are curious about what copywriting could be like for them as a career. And, interestingly, like what I also see for myself, maybe not this year, but maybe next year is actually bringing back the speed dating stuff and maybe going a bit deeper into not just sharing, skills to the marketing industry, but also I do think connection's a big part of my mission and maybe bringing some of that back in as well.
So exciting. Lisa, thank you so much for doing this. I feel like we could go on for a few more hours easily. We have so much to talk about. But we have to, I think, stop here so that people can get what they need from this episode, because there is so much gold that you have shared with us today. And thank you so much for that. We are going to share all of the links of your socials in the show notes. But if there's one place where you would want people to connect with you, what's that for you?
I would say probably Instagram. Yeah, Sacred Media Instagram handle.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah. So we have all of those links in the show notes. Do follow her, do soak in all of her goodness. And when I asked her what's one weird fact about her, she said it's that fries are her weakness. And I don't think that's weird at all, because why wouldn't you want to have fries over everything? Like, I love fries any day over exercise. Fries are my choice. So she's a fun, and I know we talked a lot about some spiritual things and soul-based things, but she's also a whole lot of fun, guys. So definitely follow her and get to know more and more about her. Thank you, Lisa. It was a pleasure talking to you. That's the episode for today. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. I am thrilled to have you as part of the Brave Marketing community. Because this podcast is still brand new, it would mean so much to me if you could leave a 5-star review, as that will make it easy for other brave hearts to find this podcast and grow our community of rule breakers. Until next time, have a brave week ahead.